Romans 13, verse 8. Owe no man anything but to love one another. For he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. So let's start with the first part of that verse. Owe no man anything but to love one another. Get Proverbs 22, verse 7. There's an aspect of the owe no man anything but to love one another. There's an aspect of that that has a financial sense to it, but I don't think that's what it's really getting at. Look at Proverbs 22, verse 7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. And the idea there is if you're a borrower, let's just say you have a mortgage, you're a servant to the lender, and what do you have to do? You have to keep making payments to the lender. Now, I don't believe that Proverbs 22:7 forbids all mortgages. I don't personally believe that. Very few people have the ability that when they're buying a house, they say, well, I just want to do it in cash. Because, if you do, that's great. And I think that'd be a fantastic thing to do. But the reality is that the typical person just isn't in a position where they can do that. So they have to have the mortgage. But the idea of Proverbs 22, verse 7, what should be the believer's general attitude toward debt? And that would be to avoid it whenever possible. You're probably not going to be able to avoid having certain debts in life, but you do want to try to minimize them. So I say that, but let's go back to Romans 13, verse 8. When it says, owe no man anything but to love one another, the context of that verse is verse 7. So read verse 7 with me. Render therefore to all their dues. In other words, what is due them. The idea of what's owed in verse 8, it's not really talking about finances. Proverbs 22 is, but Romans 13 is talking about whatever respect or obedience or honor, render therefore to all their dues. For some it's tribute to whom tribute is due, other custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. And the idea there is whatever the social obligations that you have, the legal requirements that are imposed upon you, you should fulfill those, is the idea. Owe no man anything. In other words, don't leave any of those obligations unperformed. Now look with me, you're in Romans 13:8. Look at Romans 13:10. Love worketh no ill to his neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. As you recall, the latter part of Romans 13:8, notice what it said. For he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. So we're commanded to love one another. Get Galatians 5:14. Galatians chapter 5 and verse 14. Galatians 5:14. For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even in this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So Scripture commands us to love our fellow man, and that love is the fulfilling of the law. Now, I want to say a bit here just about the difference between like and love. So let's start with the word like. And people sometimes have the idea that, when you think of tall, taller, tallest, so tall is descriptive, taller is comparative. It's saying this one is taller than that one, it's comparing. And then tallest is superlative, right? So people think of like, and then like is like the less intense form of love. So you like something, but love is like you really, really, really like it. That's kind of, I think, the sense people often have of it. But I was going to tell you that's wrong. That's not scriptural. So let's understand what the word like actually means. So I'm going to read this is from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Like, definition 1A. To feel attraction toward or take pleasure in. Enjoy. And the example given is likes baseball. And the idea there, so let's just play this through. If you think of baseball, do some people like baseball and some people not care for baseball? And the answer is yes. Uh, Let me give you another example that I would suggest. Like is a feeling. In other words, you either feel attraction towards something or you don't. So I'm going to give you an example. I do not like green beans. In fact, I hate them. But I do not like green beans. My wife, for reasons that are unclear, likes green beans. And so I will get this information about green beans are so healthy and they're so wonderful and all this propaganda. And it's the idea of attempting to convince me that I should like green beans. I will not now, nor will I ever like green beans. Now, the reason why is this: I do not feel attracted to them, and I will never feel attracted to them. Okay, I just won't. That is what like is. You either like something or you don't. You all know this. Are there foods that you really, really like and other foods that you just can't stand? And you have people you know, they're like, well, this is great. You should like this. And you know to the core of your being, you cannot like it, right? Okay, so let's talk about love. Look with me at Luke 6, verse 27. Now, while you're turning there, I'm going to make this point. Let's talk about like in the marriage context. Typically, people like their spouse, but they do not do so at every single moment. I'm being honest with you. And you know why that is? It's not possible to like another sinful person at every single moment. It's not possible because they do things that irritate you. And it's not possible because you sometimes behave irrationally yourself? And if you're all honest, you know that's true. So, does anyone go through life and like another sinful creature at every single moment? The answer to that is no. Now, let me say this: the believer is never commanded to like his fellow man. Never. Scripture uses the word love. Now, I ask you to turn to Luke 6, verse 27. Luke 6, verse 27. But I say unto you which hear, love your enemies. Well, that doesn't mean like. Do you let me just put it this way. Do not give me the super spiritual thing that I like my enemies because I naturally am attracted to them. Hooey. I don't believe that. There's no way that's true. It's not true. So let's not pretend that it is. What it says there is love your enemies. And then what does it say immediately after that? Do good to them which hate you. Verse 35. But love ye your enemies and do good and lend, hoping for nothing again. Now, here's what I'm going to suggest to you. Love in the scriptures is the conscious choice to do good to someone. It doesn't mean that you always like them. That's not real. When it says love your enemies, it's not saying to naturally feel attracted toward them, because that's just it's nonsense. It just doesn't work that way. When you love, what you do is you act irrespective of your feelings. If you love someone, you do good for them, even in times when they're driving you crazy. And you all know that to be the case. So when scripture says love your enemies, it's not saying like them. It's not saying to feel attracted toward them. What it's saying is essentially be a grown up and choose to do good for them, irrespective of how you feel. Let me put it another way. If you live your life on the basis of what you feel at the moment, you are a child. If the way that you interact with your job is you go to work when you feel like it, what's going to happen? If you treat your wife or your children nicely when you feel like it, but not other times, how's that relationship going to work? It's not, because that's the behavior of an infant. Being a mature person, what you do is you love people where you do good to them and you treat them properly, irrespective of your emotions. Let me put it this way. Your emotions can be the fakest thing around. And I'll give you an example of that. Have you ever watched a movie and there will be a suspenseful part where someone is in danger? So the bad guy is hiding behind the door, and the main character walks in, and the main character doesn't know the bad guy is behind the door. And so, have you ever had the hairs stand up on the back of your neck because you watch this and you see this unfolding, and there's emotional tension because there's implicit danger? But are any of the actors actually in danger? They're not. It's a play. It's fake. But you're interacting with it in a way, and your emotions react to it even though it's fake, right? Doesn't that prove to you that you should not live your life based upon the tyranny of your emotions? Because your emotions can't distinguish fact from fiction. They can't discern reality. So let me simply say this. We're in Romans 13, verse 8. When it says, "Owe no man anything but to love one another," the love there doesn't mean like. It's love. It's the conscious choice to do good. But to love one another, for he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. What we need to be doing as believers is to recognize that love is a choice. It's not simply an emotional thing. You can choose to do that which is right, and Scripture commands us to love our neighbor, including our enemies. It's not simply operating on the basis of emotion.